All right. Good evening, everyone. I'll call to order this meeting of the Cotati City Council and the successor agency to the former Cotati Community Redevelopment Agency. Can we call the roll, please?
Councilmember Savage. Here. Councilmember Sparks.
Here.
Councilmember Harvey.
Here.
Vice Mayor Lemus.
Here.
Mayor Ford.
Here. We next have some ceremonial items at the beginning of the meeting. We begin with the land acknowledgement and the Pledge of Allegiance, and I invite you to stand if you wish to join us for those.
Mayor Ford, may I speak on this matter, please? I have a right under the government code to speak on each and every item before.
So, Mr. Barrett,
Sir, let me finish, sir. I just like to speak on this item.
No, you may not speak to this item. Let me tell you why. So tonight we have agendized changes to these procedural and ceremonial items as part of an update to the City Council rules, and you're welcome to comment on it then. Or, as I've mentioned before, you can always comment on anything you wish during citizens' business, or for these items on public comment on non-action agenda items. So you're welcome to speak that.
You haven't voted on this new procedure yet. Therefore, you're still bound by existing councilman rules.
The council rules.
Denying me the right is a violation of the law. And secondly, you don't even know if those policies are going to be changed tonight. So it's very presumptuous on your part to.
We are not operating according to any new rules. We are operating according to the existing rules. These are non-action. These are non-action agenda items, and as thus.
If you read one word, sir, you're taking action, sir. So I'm going to warn you. I have a right to speak.
Mr. Barrett, you are clearly intent on disrupting the meeting by taking over the space from the audience and the council and preventing the meeting from moving forward. I've repeatedly advised you that this is not a public comment period, but to avoid the continued disruption of the meeting, I will make an exception to our policy and open up public comment at this time. So you are welcome, and as is anybody else in the room is welcome to come forward. And others, I apologize for you having to wait for your agenda items. Feel free to come forward. So apparently Mr. Barrett wishes to speak.
Thank you, sir. And for the council members and our audience here, because the mayor has selective memory, I go by former City Councilman George Barrett or Councilman George Barrett. So I want to thank the council for obeying the law on this matter. And again, I want to say that this land acknowledgement is just silly and ridiculous. It's all intended to make up for the guilt of removing Chief Cotati from our city seal. I think this is a precursor to changing the name of the town, to remove Cotati, to remove any reference to our Native American heritage here. I don't think it's very clever. You're not going to pull one over my eyes, but I think that's where you're going with this. And I think it's wrong. And I'll take you back to a point when the local tribe wanted to negotiate with the city of Cotati to bring in a new casino to the area. And I was sitting here listening to it, and the city council wanted nothing to do with our Native Americans setting up a casino in this town. Now, we can go back and look at history why that was the case, but they dissed our Native American heritage to the fact that the tribe went over to Rohnert Park, started negotiations with Rohnert Park to put in a casino, and the city council heard about it, and boy, were they furious that they missed that opportunity. So they asked Diane Thompson, the city manager, to draft a letter to the tribe inviting them back to Cotati for negotiations. I got up and told them, you guys missed the opportunity. You insulted them, you dissed them. You think they're going to come back and negotiate with you now since they've already started negotiations with Rohnert Park? You're out of your minds. Sure enough, the tribe of Grayton Casino decided to make a deal with Grayton Casino, and the rest is history. We've lost how many millions of dollars in tourist money, sales tax money, TOT money? It's hard to imagine. So I also want to say that I think this whole land acknowledgement smacks of racism and wokeism, and it's a cover-up. I think it's driving business away from Cotati. It's embarrassing our town. It's virtual signaling at its worst. trying to act like the city is doing something very good, when in fact, you discriminate, you single out one national heritage, one race of people. You disregard all the other races and heritages in town. You must equally make a land acknowledgement to all cultures, all races, all ethnicities, or you're doing a grave disservice to our town. You got to be able to see that. I think, if you feel so indebted to the Native Americans who habitated this land without a sewer system, without a water system, who foiled the water, foiled the air, just like all these other cultures did all around the globe, I think it's ridiculous. We have made great strides with Western civilization here in Cotati. I don't know why in heavens you're paying such respect to these people who you think were here. You don't know if the Vikings were here before them. You don't know if the Russians were here before them. This is all highly debatable, highly skepticism here, what you're doing here. And each week when you do this, flapping your mouth about a land acknowledgement just goes to the fact that we need to have a public workshop on this fact. Oh, I'm sorry, I'm out of time, sir. Thank you for your graciousness, sir.
Anybody else wishing to speak during this courtesy extra public comment period? Yes.
Mr. Ford, this is not really a public comment period. This is a period to comment on this agenda item. California Government Code 54954.3, adequately quoted by your city manager, Damian Obid, says every agenda for regular meeting shall provide an opportunity for members of the public to directly address the legislative body on any item of interest to the public that's listed on that agenda during the legislative body's consideration of the item. Now, I know I've said it before, I'm going to be brief on this tonight, but you have various violations in here on other items, which I'll speak to later. But I noticed under 10C of your council rules of conduct that under 10C, under public comment, action items, maybe you want to take a look at that. It says approval of your final agenda is one of the things that we can comment on for 3 minutes. Yet your own agenda says you can't comment on it unless you're going to change the agenda. What if somebody in the audience wants to say, we've got 5 or 6 people here that want to speak to an agenda item, we'd like to have it moved up? You're precluding that because you are violating the Brown Act. That's all I have. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Anybody else in the chambers? Okay, let's check with our Zoom participants.
Thank you, Mayor Ford. Speaking to our Zoom attendees, please use the raise hand icon to make a public comment. The first hand is from Lori Alderman. Lori, you have the floor.
Real quick, in response to an accommodation request, this speaker and the previous 2 speakers ago will receive an extra minute of comment time every time they offer public comment tonight.
Mr. Ford, I've asked you many times not to disclose my disability. It's not a requirement, and you did it again. Why are you doing these things? You're on a power trip. You want to deny speech. You want to deny ADA accommodations. You want to my privacy. There's people with hidden disabilities out there you can't handle. And of course, you're going to put your heads down. You all put your heads down whenever things go wrong. But the code, the land acknowledgement, I'm going to go back to, the Page brothers had Cotati, Roanoke Park, were the Cotati Rancho, and they, and they owned 17,000 acres of Cotati and Roanoke Park. They didn't allow any hunting or anything, so any Native Americans were taken out and for arrested if they were in Cotati, Roanoke Park. So, and then they basically sold off the parcels. So for ages, we've been in here, the Itati Indians are Itati tribe were supposedly up near Crane Canyon, but you say coastal Miwok, coastal Miwok, and it's not. It is coastal Miwok, and it is Pomo, and you need to change the land acknowledgement. Thank you.
Thank you.
The next hand is from Adina Flores. Adina, you have the floor.
Good evening, Council. It upset me right now to hear Ms. Lori Alderman speak because I've actually been privy to the emails that she has sent the Council many times to request that you don't publicly shame her, essentially, by disclosing her specific needs for special accommodations. And I'm only reiterating this because of her previous comment, but you know this, and she's really sweet, and I've met her, and I watch you guys continually bully her, and it's not okay. I don't know why you guys pass all these proclamations and whatnot about genuinely caring about community members when that was quite intentional and very blatantly obvious. And so, as she stated regarding the land acknowledgement, I believe that's being potentially moved as a policy item within your agenda. But I do have some words to say about the land acknowledgement. It's necessary to preserve the culture and the rights and allow American brothers and sisters in the community. I know that your councilwoman, Sylvia Lemus, was on the Progressive Travel Alliance board, and I've heard a lot of controversy around that nonprofit in the community that apparently they don't genuinely support the Native Americans, and certain individuals have interest in grant funds. So that concerns me. I'm not sure why Ms. Lemus was taken off the board's website, and now there's no mention of her. So I guess the word got out. So I just hope they're not trying to indoctrinate the natives, because that's really not okay, and that's happening with every other local nonprofit that gets government funding. So thank you. God bless.
Thank you.
Seeing no further hands on Zoom, Mayor Ford, that will end public comment.
All right. So with, at the end of that public comment, we'll proceed to the land acknowledgement and the Pledge of Allegiance. I invite you to stand if you wish. The city of Cotati recognizes that we're on the ancestral lands of the Coast Miwok, who are the original caretakers of this area. We respectfully acknowledge the indigenous peoples who have been stewarding and maintaining a relationship on this land as knowledge keepers for millennia. This acknowledgement does not take the place of authentic relationships with indigenous communities, but serves as a gesture of respect to the land we are on.
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to speak on this item. I had my hand raised.
The next item on our agenda is listed as approval of minutes.
Under Pledge of Allegiance, or you just took action under California law, you just opened it up before or during the consideration of the item. I'd like to speak on this item, sir.
We've agendized changes to these procedural and ceremonial items as part of an agenda item tonight, so you will have opportunity to speak on it then, or you may speak on anything you wish at citizens' business. I understand you would rather. This is not a public comment time. Thank you.
This isn't public comment
You're-
time, sir. This isn't citizens' business time.
I didn't say it was citizens'
Right
business.
to speak on each and every agenda item until you change it later and violate California law. Right now, tonight, at this time, 6:14, you must obey the law. Just as you did with the land acknowledgement, you must bring it up, you must open it up for Pledge of Allegiance, sir.
Our next item is a notice of waiving of reading of all resolutions and ordinances.
One last time, and give you one more chance to cure yourself before you lose your qualified immunity here, sir.
So you have lodged your objection. We have noted your objection. Thank you. Thank you, sir.
Have you denied
You
me
may
my
please
right?
sit down.
Have you denied me my right?
You may sit down. You
I
have,
know I may sit down. I'm
amp-
asking you if you're denying me my right, sir.
you have ample rights to speak on the,
I'll speak in
any
one
items,
minute.
not right now.
Is that a no, sir?
That is a no. You may
Thank you,
not
sir.
speak right now.
Thank you. The judge will want to hear that.
All right, we will move on to approval of minutes and notice of waiving of reading of all resolutions and ordinances introduced and/or adopted under this agenda. Now, it's come to our attention that the date of the set of minutes that was in the packet didn't make it into the agenda, so I'm gonna recommend we not take action on those minutes yet. We'll just push those to the next meeting. So this agenda item is solely notice of waiving of reading of all resolutions and ordinances introduced and/or adopted under this agenda. And City Attorney, do I need to open that for public comment, the notice of waiving of reading?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so anybody with public comment on the waiving of reading of all resolutions and ordinances introduced and/or adopted? We'll start with Zoom this time.
Thank you, Mayor Ford. Once again, speaking to our Zoom attendees, please use the raise hand icon to make a public comment on this item. The first hand is from Lori Alderman. Lori, you have the floor.
Whoops, sorry. I just missed putting it down.
Okay, thanks.
Seeing no further hands on Zoom.
Anybody in the chambers? Okay, we'll close public comment on the notice of waiving of reading. And we're on to announcements. So,
Would like to speak on this matter?
we have,
As I did last week, sir.
we have agendized changes to these procedural and ceremonial items as part of an update to the City Council rules. You are welcome to comment on it then, or you may comment on citizens' business, which we would be at now, had you not been disruptive.
Any new laws or procedures yet, sir? The controlling law tonight is,
This has nothing to do with the new City Council rules. We are operating under the existing City Council rules at this
then you
point.
should allow me my 4 minutes to speak.
Sir, this is,
Are you denying me my right to speak?
I'm
on
not-
this agenda item?
I'm not denying you any right.
Then I'll come forward.
This is
Be
not the
clear
time
with
to
me,
speak.
sir.
You may sit.
I know I may sit, but unless you deny me my right verbally, I'm not going to try to infer what's in your head.
There is
I'm
no
gonna-
right
I'm going
to
to
speak
comment
at this
unless you
point.
tell me, no, I cannot comment, sir.
You continue to seem intent on disrupting this meeting by
Sir,
taking
you are
over
disrupting
from
the
me,
meeting. I'm exercising my constitutional rights.
taking
It is
over
you
from
are
me and
causing
preventing
a
this
public
meeting from moving
disruption, sir.
forward.
You're causing a public disruption. May I speak on this
I have
item?
repeatedly
Yes or
advised
no?
you that this is not a public comment
Yes or
period.
no, sir? May I speak on this item? Just do it, sir. Yes or no? So the judge can see it, sir. May I speak on this matter?
If you would give me 30 seconds to read something, then you would have an answer. You seem intent on disrupting this meeting by taking over from me and the audience and preventing the meeting from moving forward. I have repeatedly advised you that this is not a public comment period, but to avoid the continued disruption of the meeting, I will make an exception to our policy and open up public comment at this time. So you may continue.
Thank you. That was a waste of 2 minutes, sir. All right? So I don't know what's going on here. You like listen to yourself talk here. Could have said, come forward, Mr. Barrich. We may not have this procedure in a couple weeks, but we surely have it tonight. So I'm really starting to question your leadership abilities here. Now on announcements. This is boilerplate language that is read each and every meeting without fail, without change, week after week, month after month, year after year. It's unnecessary. I think everybody in the room knows how to read. You surely don't read the first page of the agenda. Why are you reading these announcements when it's the same thing over and over again and we can all read it? Secondly, it talks about here that the city council loves, where does it say that? On measure E, on item E of this agenda item, like always, we love to hear from you. So please feel free to contact us, blah, blah, blah. The fact is, sir, you do not love to hear from us. You have done everything in your power to censor me, okay? To get us to sit down. You've raised your voice at me. How dare you tell me, raise your voice in front of these ladies in the public here and tell me to take my seat and sit down. I can stand against the wall. I can kneel on the floor. How dare you? You don't love to hear from any of us. I'd like to see a show of hands. Mr. Savage, you can exempted from this question. How many of you ever returned my email or call? Let me show the audience a show of hands. Anybody ever love to hear from me? Show the audience with a show of hands. How many of you have called me and said, I'd like to take you for coffee, Mr. Birch, and speak about some few things that are on your mind? Being a learned and educated man as you are and a former city council member, how many of you ever offered to speak with me outside these chambers? Anybody? So this is a farce, sir. It's an insult to our intelligence that you claim that, like always, you love to hear from us. What an abomination. And you owe the public an apology. You surely owe the ladies on the city council an apology, because I don't think any of them would have done this. You've been rude, condescending, violating my basic civil rights. And you can proceed with your announcements here tonight, but I object to it, and I think you need to go back to school on the First Amendment.
Thank you. Anybody else in chambers? Okay, we'll check with Zoom.
Once again, speaking to our Zoom attendees, please use the raise hand icon to make a public comment on this item. Seeing no hands, Mayor Ford, that will end public comment.
All right, so we'll close that special extra public comment period and move on to announcements. Meeting orientation for new attendees and viewers. In conformance with the Brown Act and the adopted City Council rules, the meeting agenda includes items labeled as action items, where the City Council may consider the item. If the City Council considers the item, citizens will be afforded the opportunity to provide comments relevant to the item being discussed. The meeting agenda also includes a citizens' business item, which is the designated place on the agenda where citizens have the right to say whatever they wish. However, the Brown Act prohibits the City Council from taking action or considering any item that is not on this agenda to ensure that other members of the community who wish to provide comment are notified in advance through a properly noticed meeting agenda. B, Measure S supports police services, a variety of recreation programs for all ages, and the maintenance of our streets, parks, and public buildings. See details on the web at cotadicity.gov. C, citizens interested in receiving City of Cotati community alerts via text or email are encouraged to enroll with Civic Ready by signing up on the city's website, www.cotadicity.gov, under the How Do I link at the top of the homepage. D, have you noticed a streetlight out, pothole, or issues in a city park? We want to keep Cotati beautiful and running smoothly, so please let us know what needs to be fixed by following one of the QR codes posted around the city or just going to the city website under How Do I and report a service request. And like always, we love to hear from you, so please feel free to contact the city at 707-792-4600 or info@cotadicity.gov. If you have a non-emergency issue after normal business hours, you can contact us at 707-792-4611. And of course, if you have an emergency, please contact 911. Continue to look for updates on the city's website and social media channels available on Facebook, Instagram, and Civic Ready. And with that, we're on to agenda item 7. We have a presentation, which is an update on the Sonoma County Library by Cotati's Library Commissioner, Tina Poles. So feel free to come forward, Commissioner Poles.
Thank you very much, Mayor Ford. First off, I'm Tina Poles. I'm your new commissioner on the library, and I really want to thank you for the honor. Libraries are very, very important to me. I grew up going to them all the time. I believe they are the place that serves the whole community in all of its amazing ways, and it's an incredible honor to represent Cotati on the commission. And I just wanted to say that my dad back in Massachusetts was a library man and was also on their board, and so I feel like I'm following in my dad's footsteps, so it's a good thing to do. So I want to just give you an update about what's happening countywide in the library, and then specifically about the Cotati Rohnert Park branch. So that's what I'm going to do today. Just a side note, I've joined the finance committee of the library. I felt like it was really important to understand how the money involves in, it's somewhat complicated. We have sales tax money, we have property tax money, and we, of course, just passed Measure W, which is also money. So it's a complicated and important that the commissioners are really informed in how money is decided in in the library system, so I thought it was important to join, so I've joined that about 2 months ago, and I'm still very much figuring out everything that's going on, but I have some good mentors there, so it's there. So some general library updates, the joint power of agreements, which all cities operate that have a library, and our library has 2 JPAs because we have Roanoke Park and we have Cotati's, and Barbara McKenzie represents Roanoke Park on the commission. And we're in a 10-year review of that JPA. Each city is in a review, and in fact, this Friday on the 11th is the last day for public commenting for them to look at that. So if you have any comments about how the JPA, it's important, that joint power of agreement of how the city and the library are in relationship to each other. And so it's important that we hear as many voices about that as possible. So going back to just general library info, we're in the middle of doing a lot of renovations in Cloverdale, Healdsburg, Petaluma, and Windsor. Lots of updates and painting and new carpets, and Roanoke Park and Cotati is in the line, probably in the next budget thing for our version of carpets and updating and some electrical. So we're sort of going through each of the libraries and making sure they're up to snuff in those kind of ways, making sure they're okay. Rosalind is in the middle of design. We just saw the first rounds of designs for the new library in Rosalind, which will be part of the fire station is all in that place on Hearn. The commission just saw the first rounds of the architect drawings and the ideas behind it. So it's a really exciting time. You know, it's probably clearly a year or 2 out of anything, but it's an exciting time to be looking at the first new library in the whole system. And so that'll be up in Roseland. Specifically, Cotati Roanoke Park, one of the things that just happened, I want to say 2 months ago, is we have a bibliobox, and this is a way for you to come get any reserved materials 24/7. It's outside. You can arrange, instead of having what you've reserved in the library, where you, of course, have to be there during business hours, you can get it 24/7 out in the box. We just opened that, and we're moving those through all the libraries now, so it allows access 24/7 for people reserving any material from the library. So that's an exciting thing to make it more accessible to everyone, even with the hours. One of the things that's interesting about the bibliobox, the first time you use it, you can say, I want a high one, I want a low one, I don't care. So the box is fairly tall, and you get the correct box if you cannot reach a high box, or you're a child or anything. So it's a nice thing to remember where you want your material to be. So that's a nice thing. We had the technology department walk us through how it looks from both the library end and the patron end, so it was nice to see that. The other thing that's happening is each library has a lab, which stands for the Library Advisory Board, and we, of course, have a lab, and this relationship is more branch to branch, and it allows input from people to the commission and back to the staff about things that maybe are not being realized in the library, or things they'd like to see or more of, or any of those things. We actually have 2 openings on the library, our lab at Roanoke Park and Cotati. We'd love to see a Cotati resident on that. We also have a teen spot, which has been really, really helpful to have high school students on there. They have a very different set of information, and we'd love to see that is a year-long commitment. If you're a teen, it's a 2-year if you're an adult. And so we'd love to see, we have 2 openings, and Commissioner McKenzie and I will start interviewing as we see that, and we'd just love to see a lab person from the city of Cotati on there. Is there anything else I wanted to talk about? Talk about the JPA? I think that's probably the most general way I can speak in more detail if anyone has a question.
Questions from council members? Councilmember Sparks.
Yeah, thank you. How should folks go about applying for the Library Advisory Board?
So the best way to go on is probably on the website, on the Sonoma County website. And if you come down off the home page, you'll sort of get the first things, and then it'll come in. It says lab Library Advisory Board, and there's a process there. And of course, you're welcome to contact me, and I will help you do that. So
Fantastic. And then just one other question about the Bibliobox. Has there been any discussion of placing a Bibliobox someplace in Cotati?
Yeah, well, City Council O'Brien and I have had a number of discussions about bringing in programs from, and in fact, I just met with the branch manager, Jen Ryan, and we've got a list of programs that'll come in. At this point, the boxes are attached to the physical libraries. And so there hasn't been any discussion about having any biblioboxes that aren't physically attached. Because part of it is you need the library staff to put them in as holds come in. So there's sort of, they haven't gone past the physical building where the library staff is pulling those things and just deciding whether they go internally on the shelving or in the boxes. But I surely I can ask, yeah.
Okay, I'll just add to Councilmember Sparks' point, when the library director came to us sometime within the last year, she also raised the possibility of one of those boxes here in Cotati,
Okay,
and it got
I
us
will-
all pretty excited, so
Okay.
I'm hoping you can follow up with that.
Okay, thank you. I will take that. At this point, they're physically attached to
Yeah.
each library, but that doesn't mean they have to be. I don't, okay.
Councilmember Harvey.
And if that's not a possibility, because they have to be physically located, even more, having the Biblio bus come more often, if that's a better solution.
Okay.
That would certainly work as an option.
So what I'm hearing is just having more presence of something in Cotati from the light.
Yes.
I think we've talked about that. Okay.
Yes, thank you.
All right.
Thank you.
Okay,
All right,
thank you.
thanks so much for being here
Thank you.
today. Do we typically open presentations for public comment? We're not taking any action. Okay.
It's, when there's any sort of discussion back and forth, just as a
Yeah.
courtesy, we typically do.
Might as well. So we'll open this item for public comment. Anybody wishing to comment on the update on the Sonoma County Library just given by our library commissioner is welcome to speak now. Let's start with the Zoom audience, please.
Thank you, Mayor Ford. Once again, speaking to our Zoom attendees, please use the raise hand icon to make a public comment on this item. The first hand is from Neil Hancock. Neil, you have the floor.
Yes, I'd just like to really appreciate having a library commissioner a report back. The libraries are an incredibly good resource for us, and so really appreciate it.
Seeing no further hands on Zoom.
Okay, anybody in the chambers? Mr. Parrish.
I too want to echo Mr. Hancock and thank the commissioner for coming forward tonight. I would be remiss if I did not say my heart is so heavy for what she does and what her responsibilities are, because as you remember, the city of Cotati never donated a dime to our Rohnert Park Cotati library when it was in the planning stages and before the ribbon cutting. And attending all these meetings over almost 30 years, I sat through these meetings where one night, John DeLoso, who was on the board, along with lovely Lynn Condi, came before the city council and expressed the fact that up to this point, Cotati had not donated any money towards this wonderful, lovely new library that serves us all. And they both came up with an idea that they asked the city of Cotati, the leaders, if they would be so kind as to maybe put up $5,000 to help with the signage and the foliage in the front of the entrance so that they could have some stake in the library. And they both made a convincing plea to the council. And I sat in the audience and I listened. And ultimately the council refused, not one dime, towards our beautiful library. And it's been embarrassing because we've had money. We've surely spent money on lots of needless stuff over the years. But such a wonderful institution like this Bi-City library was snubbed by Cotati and continues, I believe, looking at the budget, doesn't contribute any money towards the library and the staffing. Is something you really need to sit with and think about when we think about town pride and how we work with our neighbors for these joint ventures and so forth. So I want to ask the council to keep hope and put in your prayers that maybe one day Cotati will rise up to its responsibilities on projects like this. Will there be a bi-city skateboard park that might come down the road, or another senior center or something here for both cities, that we try to remember the mistakes that we made with the library funding, and we try to make amends by finding something in the budget to move us forward. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else in the chambers? Yes.
Mayor, it is not a courtesy to take public comment. Mr. Obid is wrong once again.
Thank you. Anybody else in the chambers? Okay, we'll close that public comment and bring it back to council for any closing comments. Vice Mayor Lemus.
Yeah, I just want to thank the library commissioner. Libraries are just amazing. I love everything they offer. I mean, they offer all kinds of, even like the Canopy and Hoopla and different kind of programs. We can watch programs that normally are not on television. So I love it. And you can even get a state park and a state park pass and a regional park pass there. You can check it out. So they just have so many options there. So I appreciate it. Thank you.
Yeah, ditto. I'm very impressed at how our library has sort of kept up with the times, and like the ebook offerings, the things beyond books, pretty impressive. Yeah.
I would like to echo thanking Tina Pols for serving our community in this manner. It's important work, and as many have said, the library is important to lots of folks. And now, as pointed out, there are a lot of different things that are available than just books. But thank you so much for your service.
All right, thank you all. We'll move on to item 8, approval of the final agenda. And apart from removing the minutes approval from the agenda, are there any further changes?
No proposed changes, no.
Okay. Given that we made that change, I will open approval of the final agenda up to public comment. Let's start in the chambers. So this is approval of the final agenda.
Okay.
So-
My name is Michael Hilber. I will lodge an objection specifically to the way this is drafted with number 9. You lump together comments on the consent calendar along with comments on non-agenda items under your jurisdiction. You know, that's entirely inappropriate because those are two entirely separate matters under the Brown Act. The right to comment on the consent calendar items, which are often substantial action items, and also to bring up anything that's not on the agenda but under your purview. It should be two separate, distinct items on the agenda. Often very substantial matters are put on the consent calendar. For example, do you know that the city of Sebastopol was given an exemption from collecting the child care tax because that would have pushed their cumulative sales tax to 10.5, which is over the 10.25 cap. So the county, in conjunction with Sebastopol, figured out that they would just make them exempt from collecting the child care tax. And that was, you know, that was really crooked because it implies that the people of Sebastopol could vote for a tax that they do not have to pay. And that sort of substantial crooked business was put on the consent calendar. Now, if you do that sort of thing and you lump it together with you know, the right of the public to comment on a non-agenda item, that's severely compromising the rights of the public under the Brown Act. And also, you know, item 15, you know, I have no idea what this is, and I don't think it has any business being there because it doesn't make any sense to me. Just take it off.
Thank you. Anybody else on approval of the final agenda? Yes, sir.
I did some research on your rules. And in your rules, it says the Brown Act overrules your attempt to disregard citizens' rights to comment on any item of interest listed on your agenda. Number 12 says inconsistencies. The Brown Act, the Cotati Municipal Code, or other controlling state law shall prevail over any provisions in these rules and procedures which are inconsistent. Saying that you have to take action on this item is inconsistent because under 10C, comply with the law, it appears the denial of speaking to me, of speaking to the approval of the final agenda is recognized not only as an action item, which is listed under subsection 1, public comment, action items, but as available to the public on which to comment as noted in section 1. And I say here, read it for yourself. Number 1 says public comment, action items, to ensure full access for any public wishing to speak and to maintain a timely and efficient meeting. And I don't criticize you, Mr. Ford, for trying to run an efficient and timely meeting. But all of this infighting is what is stopping us from having an efficient meeting here. Public comment on any one agenda item where the council will be taking some action is limited to no more than 3 minutes per person. To avoid requiring the public to make multiple trips to the speaker's podium, public comment on the consent calendar shall be received during citizens' business and shall be an additional 3-minute comment period per person in total for any and all items on the consent calendar. I agree with Mr. Hilber on this. If you have a number of items on your consent calendar, you should really allow 3 minutes for each of those items if it's something that a person wishes to speak to. Then it says the following agenda items are action items. It doesn't say maybe action items. It says they're action items. Under small number 2, 2 I's, it says approval of the final agenda. That's all I wanted to bring to your attention. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else in the chambers? All right, let's check with Zoom. So this is public comment on approval of the final agenda.
Thank you, Mayor Ford. Once again, speaking to our Zoom attendees, please use the raise hand icon to make a public comment. The first hand is from Lori Alderman. You have the floor.
I request that for you do not approve this agenda as is, that you take out the change in the civil and the city council rules because it is retaliatory. It is unneeded. You've already had 3 civil rights freedom, free of speech ones done and again in federal court, and now you want to limit more of free speech and do it against the Brown Act. You already were schooled by the Brown Act by federal Judge Chen, who had his researchers go all over the Brown Act with all of you. And this is ridiculous. We shouldn't be punished. And you guys got to speak for over 2 hours straight last time. How many minutes would it have took for 2 or 3 people in the audience to speak? You spent more time yelling at us. And sorry, I'm afraid of you now, Mr. Ford, because of your anger in your eyes is incredible. It upset me for days afterwards. I don't deserve to be taught, to looked at, or talked to that way. And you need to take it off the agenda and do what's right, because this is not right for you guys to think you can do that. It's also pretty stupid legally. You're pretty much admitting that it was a disturbance and it wasn't a disturbance. It was objections. So you're legally it's stupid too. So that's it.
Thank you.
Seeing no further hands, that will end public comment. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Now we'll move on to citizens' business and public comment for consent calendar items. So any member of the public wishing to speak to the council on any items listed on the consent calendar or any matters not listed on the agenda that are within the subject matter jurisdiction of the council may do so at this time. Pursuant to the Brown Act, the council is not allowed to consider issues or take action on any item not listed on the agenda. Pursuant to City Council Policy 2023-01, comments of any member of the public are normally restricted to a total of 3 minutes in length per person for matters not on the agenda, and a total of 3 minutes per person in length for any and all items on the consent calendar. The mayor may extend the time limit for a reasonable time where a disability accommodation has been requested. To facilitate public comment, the timer indicator lights will display yellow when there are 30 seconds remaining and red when time has expired. This time, let's start with the Zoom audience.
Thank you, Mayor Ford. Once again, speaking to our Zoom attendees, please use the raise hand icon to make a public comment. The first hand is from Lori Alderman. You have the floor.
Hold on. Am I on now?
Yes.
Okay. This control game is really silly too about all of this. When you have the code enforcement scandal that you will not acknowledge, we're in our 22nd month of it being going on against George Barrick, and then you're doing a retaliatory act aimed at him with this city council rules, saying in the staff report that individuals are disrupting on this item. How is that going to look in front of a judge? You guys, you got to stop making this all about the city's business. It's not. You're not teaching, even treating people with fairness. I just found out from a PRA request, you've also spent another $40,000 on the administrative law judge to go after George. After I know at least of $60,000 that the Robert Smith, his attorney, has been paid, and that was up to last July. I can't get any information, no PRA requests from. I get the invoices that are sent to Kevin and all the administrative department, but he has not. Robert Smith has not purposely withheld information since for many months now. There's no billings but there's papers. You guys all know this. I sent you emails and everything, and you still won't acknowledge this, and you play this stupid game over control. Well, you're not right. They're not legally right. To do this. You always want everything. It's like you say, the law is the law is the law. Well, you're not. You don't. There's a lot of interpretations of the law, and yours is not always right, and you don't listen to anybody. I guess that's it, because I'm tired. Bye.
Thank you.
Seeing no further hands on Zoom.
Okay, so we'll take comments in the chambers. Mr. Barrett, feel free.
There's an old saying that keeps coming back to me that seems just most relevant. You know, when you're in a hole, stop digging. And I want to remind the council, we, the citizens, have done everything we possibly can to hand you the law on a silver platter, spelling it out using up our time rather than the city attorney's time or Damien's time. Spell out the law, and you just kept violating it. In 2009, the city council and I passed a council member's code of conduct. And we brought it up to the council many times when they've violated the code of conduct. And not one council member has ever been charged by another council member for disorderly conduct or unprofessional conduct or attacking citizens unfairly and so forth. And even the complaints that the citizens have filed against council members were buried. Nothing was done about any of them. at the last two meetings, I just got this feeling that I got all this toxic masculinity from Mr. Ford, and it's just unnecessary, just unnecessary. There's a level of decorum and professionalism we all need to strive for. Nobody wants the city to fail. Constructive criticism needs to be encouraged, not browbeaten. And I think with that kind of conduct, I mean, I'm glad you've kind of got a hold of yourself tonight, Mr. Ford, but that kind of conduct, it just scares people. You know, I may be presumptuous, but Councilmember Sparks, you know, asked for a recess after the outbursts at the last meeting, and I felt bad. It's just unnecessary to have to do that. These public disturbances and interruptions from the mayor are really legally criminal public disturbances under Criminal Code 403. Nobody wants to see that enforced. Nobody. People just need to get a hold of themselves on this. And if you want more PRA requests, this is exactly the way to do it. Treat people with disrespect, shut them down, raise your voice at them, tell them to sit down, watch a flood of PRA requests come in, okay? Is that what you really want with our budget underwater right now? I think we've learned a lesson. Fascism ends tonight. It ends tonight. Everybody is respected. Secondly, in the minute I have left, thank you, Kevin, for his excellent work too. This building is not earthquake retrofit. It's a danger to each and every one of us, and the staff members have to work in this room. Bless their hearts, okay? We need to move these council chambers that are 100 years old. You can roll a marble down the hallway and it goes sideways, okay? We need to move this over to the community room at the police department, or we need to ask Rohnert Park if they would be so gracious as to give us a Wednesday night over there where we can be in a safe building and pay them a rental charge, or maybe they'll give it to us as a courtesy until this matter is handled. But I would also like to know and ask the question for the city council, if we have authorized this police chief, if he's going to cooperate with ICE when they come to Cotati. Because I understand from my insider sources that they're coming to Cotati. And the public wants to know whether our wonderful police chief is going to cooperate or not, and whether you're going to deny him his power to cooperate. Thank you, folks.
Thank you. Anybody else in the chambers? Go right ahead.
Mr. Ford, I would like to commend you for allowing us to speak on all these items that you have. I think it's way past time. I also understand that as an elected official, I was an elected official in my city, that a lot of times ego gets in the way. I've seen it with a fellow councilman. I've seen it happen regularly in all the other cities I visit. I am an investigative journalist. I report on what happens elsewhere. And I don't want you to feel like this council, that you're the Lone Ranger, because you're not. My own council, I had to have the city attorney tell the mayor that I was allowed to speak on public, or not public comment, but on council comments. I said, well, if you say something that I don't like, I should have the ability to respond. And he didn't want to give me that. He had to turn to the city attorney for advice. And she told him, yes, and quoted that Brown Act section I've been quoting to you, any item on the agenda. So I understand that a lot of time people aren't trained, that we get embedded in our egos and say, okay, we don't like this person or we don't like that person, so we're going to make it difficult on them. I think that we're going in the right direction here. We're trying to allow or get public comment to you on items that are of interest to us, that need to be questioned. I don't agree with Mr. Barrich on everything that he said tonight. The land acknowledgement, I really don't care. A lot of these things, I can't remember the specific item I was going to comment on, but we don't all sit there and just fall in line. And I think that it's incumbent on you to take information from wherever you can get it and from as many people as you can get it from. And that's all I have. So thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else in the chambers? Okay, we'll close citizens' business and public comment for consent calendar items and move on to the consent calendar. Item 10, is there anybody on council who wishes to pull either of those items? Yes, Councilmember Sparks.
I'd like to pull item 10A, please.
10A, okay. So we're going to move 10A to be the third regular agenda item. Is that all right? Let's see. That leaves one item on the consent calendar. Anybody wish to make a motion?
Move to approve the consent calendar.
Second.
And that's just the one item.
Item B.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay, that carries 5-0. And we'll move on to direction on future agenda items. Does anybody on the council have a future agenda item they wish to put in the hopper? Okay. We'll move on to the regular agenda. So 12A is Assembly Bill 306, Letter of Opposition, recommendation that we consider opposing AB 306. So we'll start with the staff report.
Thank you, Mayor Ford, Council. Just briefly, AB 306 was introduced earlier this year. It's moving its way through the legislative process. And essentially, it's a bill that would prohibit local jurisdictions and the State Building Standards Commission from adopting or even considering new building standards for residential units through 2031, June 1st, 2031. Cal Cities has not taken any formal position on it. They have a take to policy committee stance just because I think the pace of the legislation and they're kind of just going through their process to vet it. However, a number of organizations have voiced opposition to the bill, including the ICC or the International Code Council. They're the body that creates building codes. A number of other folks and opponents generally voice multiple reasons to support their opposition of the bill. But staff has concerns and is bringing this letter forward with a recommendation for the council to support the mayor's signature, primarily because we're worried about the effects of not being able to update the building code as we move through finalizing our electronic permit process, so kind of going a fully digital with our permit review and submittal, and then also with the ability for modifications to improve the efficiency of buildings. We've had conversations with the city council before. This is a council priority, trying to implement what are commonly referred to as REACH codes, or codes that reach beyond the baseline in order to improve efficiency and help meet some of the climate goals of Cotati and the state more regionally. So there's a draft letter attached for your consideration, but staff wanted to bring this forward with the goal of having council consider it so we could get the letter signed and submitted as the legislation moves through the process.
Thank you. Are there council member questions? Do we know kind of the origin of this? I mean, I know it's, you know, to spur affordable housing supposedly, but are there interest groups that are particularly behind it? Are there sponsoring organizations, that sort of thing?
Yeah, I'm not aware, but I also haven't done a deep dive. This was brought to the department's attention through an organization that's focused primarily on REACH codes and kind of efficiency improvements. And as the mayor has identified, it is couched as kind of one of the housing efficiency or housing support legislative acts that the state's been considering.
No council questions? All right. So we'll open this item up to public comment. Any public comment on Assembly Bill 306? Please feel free. We'll start in the chamber.
Yeah, Michael Hilber, I will object to submitting a letter of opposition. In general, the public will benefit from less regulation, and in this regard, what you would be looking to preserve is your right to impose additional burdens. REACH codes, one of the things they have been used for is to try to ban the use of natural gas in homes and things like that. So, yeah, I would be very suspicious of your motives, and I would say just take no position on it.
Thank you. Anybody else in the chamber? Okay, let's check with Zoom.
Thank you, Mayor Ford. Zoom attendees, please use the raise hand icon to make a public comment. The first hand is from Lori Ann Barber. Lori Ann, you have the floor.
Thank you. Good evening, City Council. I would like to encourage you to have Mayor Ford sign this letter. I think that this bill is misguided. The organization that I work for, the Climate Center, is also working against this bill. I sent a letter kind of late to everyone, so I'm just going to use up my time to read some of it. We understand that we share the goal of increasing housing supply and lowering costs, and stand at the front lines of the climate crisis, grappling directly with the impacts of wildfire, extreme heat, drought, sea level rise, etc. However, a moratorium on new state and local building codes for both new and existing housing would not enhance affordability, but would take away a key tool for local governments to streamline processes, ensure public safety, address energy security and affordability, and to achieve their climate commitments. Far from increasing building costs, state and local REACH codes that incentivize all-electric adoption and energy-efficient appliances have helped reduce construction costs by as much as $10,000 per home. I have references for that, and saved over $100 billion in avoided energy costs over the last 50 years. AB 306 will block continued progress and the incorporation of emerging efficient technologies into new and existing buildings. Equally important, maintaining alignment with model building codes is critical to hazard mitigation. The FEMA projects that projects that adhere to current and upcoming codes will avoid more than $600 billion in cumulative losses from floods, hurricanes, and earthquakes by 2060. As drafted, AB 306 would also prevent improvements to the code by state and local jurisdictions, including the ability of the Building Standards Commission and local governments to adopt and accept online forms, streamline codes and compliance systems, and adapt existing code to accommodate cost-saving technology advancements. Pausing new building code updates would prevent the incorporation of pending revisions to the National Electrical Code and would help homeowners avoid unnecessary electrical panel upgrades. These provisions would reduce cost and delay to homeowners. While the stated objective of AB 306 is to increase the supply of housing, this bill freezes updates to building codes for alterations. I'm going to run out of time, so I think I've said enough. Again, I support a letter objecting to this bill. I think it's not in our best interest to have this go through. Thank you.
Thank you.
Seeing no further hands on Zoom.
Okay, thank you. So bring this back to council for discussion. Where are people leaning? Councilmember Harvey.
I have one question of Noah. I can't remember how often we get those updates from the state, but it seems like we get regular updates to the code and we're required to implement those changes. Is it every couple of years?
Every 3 years, that's
Every
correct.
3 years, okay. I thought it was a couple of years. Yeah, my concern with this has to do with the feverish state legislators and the sheer numbers of bills that they pass every second. And 5 years is a really long time. Lots of things can come our way. I mean, thousands of bills could come our way in 5 years. And the thought that we can't update our building codes for 5 years just seems counterproductive to all the things that we're trying to do. I mean, it'd be one thing if it was a year, but I mean, to 2031, that's a really long time. I mean, So that's really my concern with this is the length of time for this moratorium and our inability to stay in line with the things that come from the state that are constantly coming at us.
Thank you. Anyone else? Councilmember Sparks.
Yeah, thank you. I'm sympathetic to the goals of this bill, and it even seems to make some sense. I know we've been on a kind of different topic, frustrated with the furious pace of housing law, and it's just difficult to keep up with. So I can understand the desire to slow down the pace of changes so that builders can adjust to it. I read the arguments for the bill that the writers put out, and they talked also about mid-cycle updates on the 18-month timescale, and that the code can change every 18 months. So I would be a little more supportive of this if it wasn't just such a long time, like 6 years. If you'd asked me in 2019 to describe what would happen in the next 6 years, I don't think I would have been very successful. So it's a long time. So I think I would support maybe limiting it to 3 years and not doing mid-cycle updates and trying to make it a little more predictable for people. But I just think the 6 years is too long.
I agree. I think it's very short-sighted to make a commitment for that amount of time. To me, it doesn't seem reasonable.
Any thoughts, Vice Mayor Lemus?
Yeah, I mean, I agree we need housing, so some of this limiting, some of like the codes and everything, but at the same time, we need to carefully build. So I think that decreasing or increasing the time that we can review these, I think it works against us, so I'm supportive of the letter.
Okay. And me too. It seems a poorly thought out bill to me, as written currently. Prohibiting changes that make building easier just as much as prohibiting changes that make it harder. It's kind of crazy. So I'm happy to sign the letter as in the packet, which is basically as the commenter read. So let's see, do we have a motion on this? Or does somebody want to make a motion to authorize?
I make a motion that we move to authorize the mayor to sign and transmit a letter opposing passage of the bill.
Second?
All in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed? Any abstentions? All right, that carries 5-0. All right, we'll move on to item 12B, consideration of updates to the City Council Rules of Conduct. And we'll start with a staff report.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor, members of the council. So before you tonight is our City Council Rules of Conduct and some proposed edits that are shown in red line and strikeout. And ignore some of the formatting, like the numbering, because something wonky happened there, but just if the council does agree to move forward with the edits or some version of edits, we'll make sure before it actually gets published that the numbering's correct and all that. So just to point that out. And in accordance with the government code, the City Council can establish rules for the conduct of its proceedings, and then further, our local municipal code also says that the council may, by resolution, provide for rules and regulations governing the procedures to be followed at any regular or special meeting of the City Council. And so over the years, the City Council has adopted various versions of this rule. The most recent version was amended in 2023. That's what you see referenced in the agenda right now. It's Council Policy 2023-01. And these rules just basically document the processes and procedures necessary to ensure that the City Council meetings are orderly and can efficiently conduct the city's business and make sure everyone's items can be heard in a timely way. So to encourage the orderly conduct of business, addressing under Section 4, addressing the City Council, the time allocation for public comment and presentations. The City Council had previously, actually many years ago, designated action and non-action agenda items. So action items are where the City Council will consider or take action on an item. They're indicated on every City Council agenda with the action subscript after the title. And then for other procedural, ceremonial, or informational items, where the item's not being considered, it's not being discussed, there's no action being taken, the public has the ability to speak on the agenda during citizens' business as well as during the public comment on non-action agenda items, parts of the agenda, as was previously mentioned earlier today. More recently, there have been disruptions of several public meetings that have significantly delayed the continuation of the meetings by persons insisting to speak on procedural or ceremonial items that the City Council is not considering, discussing, or taking action on. And any member of the public can speak on these non-action ceremonial and procedural items during citizens' business or public comment on non-action items. Alternatively, when the City Council is actually considering these ceremonial and procedural items, such as this agenda item tonight, is the appropriate time to take public comment if the public's interested in those items. And so before you tonight, the proposed changes are intended to just reduce continued disruptions of the public meetings by incorporating changes to the roll call, land acknowledgement, and pledge of allegiance by making them policy items instead of agendized items on future City Council agenda meetings, agendized meetings. And then additionally, there's also proposed changes that take it was a separate standalone policy of the City Council that dealt with future agenda items and how they would be considered and then ultimately rolled into a work plan. So the substance of that separate City Council policy was we tried to roll it into this the City Council policy so that it's all in one place. It's easier to find. You don't have to look for the separate policy that's detached from the main policy document the City Council uses for. As I mentioned at the start, if the changes are proposed changes are approved or any version of them, staff will finalize the rules and obviously the numbering and all that will be corrected. And with that, I would be happy to answer any questions if there are any.
Any questions from council members? Councilmember Sparks.
Thank you. I have a question for the city attorney regarding these agendas in the general order section of the proposed city council rules. It did take us about an hour to get to starting on our agenda, so it's getting to be pretty time consuming to get through with people commenting on each thing. I'm wondering if we redo the rules as proposed, are we going to have to take public comment on the call to order, on the announcements and proclamations and everything that's listed on there? In other words, is it true that we have to take comment on items that we do not consider action items like announcements?
Well, I think those announcements items will remain. We still plan to have the public comment on non-action agenda items. So the announcements item has always been considered to be non-action. So I think the city's existing policy will remain. What we're trying to accomplish here is to take those purely ceremonial items where the city council is making a statement and there's no consideration. It's not actually an item within the meaning of the Brown Act. We're taking those entirely off the agenda so that there's that's not an item under the Brown Act. So we're just making that clear.
Would it make more sense to move the public comment on non-action agenda items towards to the beginning of the meeting?
I think, I'm not going to comment on whether that would make more sense or not, but you certainly could do that. That would be a council policy.
I'm asking from a legal perspective because we've heard a lot of needing to have the opportunity to comment before
right.
the thing happens.
It would provide an opportunity to comment before, and so that would eliminate at least that argument.
Any other questions? Okay, we'll open this up for public comment. So this is item 12B, consideration of updates to the City Council Rules of Conduct, and we're starting in the chambers for this one. Mr. Barrett.
Thank you, Mayor. For the benefit of the folks at home, I'm former Councilman George Barrett. As to Councilwoman Sparks' comment about how long these meetings are getting to and so forth, I have some concerns about this. Look, you folks signed up for this job. If it's a little too long for you, a little too strenuous, I think maybe you should reconsider. Number two, it's completely hypocritical to say in your announcements that you love to hear from people, yet the meetings are going a little long. So which is it? Do you love to hear from people or not? Because that's really where Mrs. Sparks is actually addressing here, is the underlying issue of, do you want to indoctrinate the public or do you want to engage the public in a democracy? It's the Democrats that are always complaining that we're going to lose democracy. Well, hell, you guys are doing a sure good job trying to do just that with something like this. And these ceremonial items that you say are ceremonial, you know, the other flip side of this is that it's brainwashing. You keep ceremonializing these items and you refuse public comment, it turns into a brain massage, okay, in the spirit of Karl Marx. And if that's where you want to go, you're going to open up a can of worms. And it has been the mayor who has been disruptive at these meetings. When simple issues and questions such as, can I speak or not? Yes or no, go on for a minute, who's to blame? Just trying to preserve my rights, make my case for future litigation. It's really easy, but this drama, this theatrics of trying to browbeat people, I think is going in the wrong direction. Now, any new rules will no way trump our government code or our state constitution, so be very careful. You've been browbeaten and scolded by 2 federal judges now. Boy, a third judge is going to have to read both those cases and look at this too. Not really advisable for the city council. Last, regarding rules, we have a standing rule right now that's been going on for many years that the citizens themselves can't use any AV equipment here to make our point, to bring information to the council that the staff is not bringing to you as they massage the facts and give you all their propaganda. The citizens have been unable and not authorized to use any of the equipment. Now, this goes back some 15 years or so when we first requested, where Damien had said, or Diane Thompson had said that, no, we can't put a disk into our laptop. We could catch a virus. Well, maybe so. How about hooking up my own laptop and just hooking into the projector? Oh, no, can't do that. Okay? See where they were going? They want censorship. I would suggest to add to these policies is you have a hookup here for an HDMI connection so people can project their evidence and their photos for the benefit of the council on these projectors. Because without doing so, you're really hogging the technology. And you are actually just indoctrinating people and denying us another form of free speech. Our evidence, our videos, our photographs are worthy of your consideration. Right now, we're being denied.
Thank you. Anybody else in the chambers?
Michael Hilbert, it sounds like you're trying to reinvent the wheel from scratch with regard to how to craft an agenda. I mean, why can't you just look at what Santa Rosa does and see if you find that acceptable, or the county? Like I said, you know, number 9 is inappropriate to lump comments on consent and non-agenda items under your jurisdiction into just one item. That should be separate, like the other government entities do. And finally, I've come to realize what this business on number 15, public comment on non-action agenda items is. So finally, I understand what that's getting at. And yes, indeed, I would agree that public's got a right to comment on, you know, city council member reports and And it should come after those are made so that they can give input to what they have heard, not before they're given, but after, so they have an opportunity to object to what may have been put on the record if they find it objectionable or whatever, because county supervisors and city council members, they attend the meetings of, the MTA, and Jake McKenzie was at, the Transportation Commission and doing all kind of strange stuff down there. So if a council member is going to give a report on what they did on one of these other bureaucracies and trying to put a bond issue together that's going to affect us, people should be able to comment on that after it's said. Case in point would be the Bay Area housing bond, which, what was that, $10 billion or something? It was some cooked up thing with regional that would go all the way to San Jose and be sticking us with a bond issue tax on our property tax that was cooked up, with McKenzie and Rabbit and some of these other people in meetings they attended out of the county. And so if they're gonna, be doing that sort of thing, they should report to the people of the county that they're doing nonsense outside the county that's gonna, stick it to us. So, yeah, people have a right to comment on that too. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mayor Ford, I object to your city manager's attempt to double down on your violation of government code and his denigration of a citizen who was simply standing up for his rights under the Brown Act. I quote his erroneous biased statements from his staff report. Number one, quote, the disruptions and delays were due to an individual, end quote. To quote former Mayor Bob Coleman, what am I, invisible? I was up here pointing out the same thing and disrupting supposedly your meeting by trying to point out the actual law and quoting it to you. Number two, quote, disrupts proceedings, end quote. To repeat, insisting on following the law is not disruption. Number three, your attorney insisting the guidelines are valid simply because you passed a resolution saying that this is the rules that you're going to follow. If they're inconsistent with the Brown Act, they're wrong. What your attorney is telling you, he's doing this under the assumption or on the basis that these guidelines that you're saying that you have action items and non-action items, the Brown Act doesn't say you have action items and non-action items. It says there are items. If they're listed on the agenda, they're on the agenda. Number three, quote, insisting that the mayor open public comment during the non-action procedure on ceremonial items, a roll call, end quote. The comment I have on this is no one, and I asked Mr. Barish if he had ever said anything about the roll call. No one has ever asked to speak to the roll call, so why did Mr. Obid even put this in there? It is an item on the agenda, but very few people are going to comment on it. Number four, Mr. Obid then doubles down on stupid by repeating your illegal stance about addressing concerns over agendized items, clearly identified and qualified under government code as open to public comment before or during their consideration, not at some later time and date justified under your illegal and flawed council guidelines. Agenda items are agenda items, as I just said, whether action or not, and your published agenda contradicts on my previously mentioned item 8, where the public is allowed to speak to action items, and saying this might be an action item doesn't excuse your responsibility to take comment on it. And I know I've already made that comment, but I wanted to reinforce it. Then this thing, the proper time to bring these things up is during the consideration of this item, the procedural guidance. It's not on the agenda all the time, so how are we supposed to bring it up? That doesn't even make any sense. Now, I'd like to briefly comment on Ms. Sparks' comments. If we hadn't wasted all the time, if you hadn't sat there and taken this bad advice from your attorneys, Mr. Ford, we could have gone through this whole meeting in probably half the time because there wouldn't have been anybody objecting to this stuff. Now, Mr. Obid should be added to those who should be fired for giving you bad advice, as I said about your city attorney the last time I spoke.
Your time has ended, sir.
May I have just a few more seconds to finish?
Please wrap up the sentence. Yes.
I'm
thank
sorry?
you. Please wrap up the sentence you're on. Yes, thank you.
I'm sorry, I can't understand you.
Please wrap up the
Yes, I will.
sentence you are on.
Okay,
Thank you.
because I want to make my point about this item specifically. There's no reason to eliminate any of these items. From what I gather, you essentially will be giving in to Mr. Barrett by removing the land acknowledgement. Either you believe in the
Thank you, sir.
statement or you don't.
That is
The pledge,
considerably over your 3 minutes.
rather Marxist,
Thank
if you ask me. I also have a problem with your using Rosenberg's Rules of Order if this is going to
Sir,
prevent
you
the
are well
public
over your
from
time.
interrupting rather than disrupting your meeting to point out a problem or give you information by way of point of information or point of...
Please take your seat, sir. Anybody else in the chambers? Okay, thank you. We'll close that public comment, bring it back to council for discussion. Oh, I'm sorry. I forgot to. I thought we started with Zoom. Anybody else? Zoom?
Point of privilege.
Yes.
Somebody delivered a package during all that, and they gave me a wave, and
Okay.
I can't do anything about it.
It's being
so-
attended to.
Okay,
Thank you. Let's check with our Zoom attendees for public comment.
Thank you, Mayor Ford. Once again, speaking to our Zoom attendees, please use the raise hand icon to make a public comment. The first hand is from Lori Alderman. Lori, you have the floor.
First, I can't believe you're spending so much of our tax dollars for even this agenda item. How much and so quickly? There's so many things that we need in this city. We do not need updates that hurt the citizens' ability to comment. And the city rules, I'll give you a little history on this. 2016, John Moore was mayor, and the rules, they did the rules to bring down the comment to all these things. John Moore and the council said that we had to have, the mayor had to disclose had to disclose the disability to get the accommodation. I spent a whole year proving that was illegal. And finally, in 2017, you had to change it. So these rules, you're entering, who knows what this, you're putting them into policies will do. It probably will be overturned by law because it's probably illegal. It was never, 2016 was horrible. It was a horrible year for public comment, and it precluded everything else that has happened. It went downhill. John Moore, I remember this especially because now I seem to be dealing with Mr. Ford on this, is I get an email from then Mayor Moore saying, I hope that you're able to work somewhere with all your disabilities. I've had it with these city rules that hurt people. You're taking away free speech. It's a control game, and there needs to be a lot more accountability. And Loris, that was not an appropriate comment that we speaking this today caused more time. Your job, there's nothing on the agenda that is any importance. This is a time to speak for us citizens. If there was 20,000 people there was 20,000, there's not. There's a couple people in the chambers. There's a couple agenda items. This is the time to change things. Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.
The next hand is from Neil Hancock. Neil, you have the floor.
Yes, thank you, Council. I'd just like to really appreciate that the role of public comment or the commenting on there, that it makes it very difficult. I know for me personally, hearing the same tired old voices that keep on going about the same thing, but that's the public process that is there, and I appreciate people stepping up to talk about things, and I just would like to keep it so that it's very, very easy for people to come in, and particularly appreciate it that the council is open to explaining the procedures for new members of the public who come along, as well as the regular members. So I do appreciate that the council goes through the rules that apply to and explain it to new people. That's always been something that has been very, very valuable, I think, for somebody coming into the room to understand that. So I appreciate the new rules that are going in, and that it makes it easier for the public, the people's business to be done. And particularly, I'd like to emphasize the people's business in running the city. I mean, that's what it's about. And that we get some ability to comment on the items of the people's business, of how to run the city and stuff. I would like to make one suggestion under the consent items, and maybe this isn't completely the appropriate place to do it, but I'd like to bring it up again. It would be really useful to see what the tentative agenda for future city council meetings is, so that we can actually plan if we're going to speak, if there's something that's routine that's coming up within the next 30 days. This is what Petaluma does, and it's a very nice aspect of being able to see, oh, something else is coming up on the agenda, and to get some visibility on it, not just to be looking at the agenda on Friday and realizing you've got to spend some time to be able to respond and get some letters into the council and maybe not think about it quite as much. So it's a real benefit to be able to think about agenda items and put them forward. And it's a real benefit to be able to have the agenda, that the council procedures that focus on getting the people's business done for the city of Cotati. So I really appreciate the opportunity to talk. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
There are no further hands, Mayor Ford. That will end public comment.
All right. In public comment, bring back to the council for discussion. So I think I'll start down at this end this time, and we'll move my left to my right.
I feel that it's something that needs to be done. I would support it.
Would you like to speak now, or you want me to jump down here? Go ahead, Councilmember Sparks.
So just to explain a little more about what I was saying, I did not mean to say that that we shouldn't have robust public comment. It's more that if we're going to have all of these items and we know that they're going to be generating public comment consistently, it makes it more difficult for people who might want to participate in the meeting on some of the items later on to be able to come in and do that. And it's less predictable on when the other parts of the agenda will get started. So I was more thinking about it from a stance of, could we reorder this or move some of these things around, or eliminate some of the items just to be able to get to some of the other business more quickly, not to stifle any public discussion about it. Yeah, so anyway, in terms of looking at the proposals, I would be okay with removing the Pledge of Allegiance and shortening the announcements. And we've had some complaints about how long the announcements are tonight. I think it'd be okay to make them shorter. Anything we can do to get the meeting a little more efficient would be fine with me.
Councilmember Harvey.
Well, this is not something that, I feel like I'm going to die on my sword for this. We've tried them this way. It's obviously not working for everyone. I have always had a tendency to open up public comment on different things. So I just want the meeting to be efficient and effective. And so if we have to change things around in order to make that happen, then, I can support that. But, I'm kind of ambivalent on this. It really is not something that I care that much about, that, there's a lot more things that I think are a lot more important to me, but that's my 2 cents.
Thank you. Vice Mayor Lemus.
So I also value public comment, but also value streamlining and efficiency in meetings as well. So I agree with some of these changes. I also wanted to comment on a comment that was made about a preview, agenda preview. I don't know if this is a time that we would add something like that to the
I think it's a little premature to actually try to wordsmith it into the rules right now, but if the idea has some uptake among the council, we can try to agendize it for the future.
Okay.
Figure out how that would look. So we'll have at least one more chance to talk on this, and consider that issue too if you want to move towards a coming attractions section for the city council.
Yeah, so I'm in support of streamlining and efficiency.
Okay. All right, thanks. So a couple issues for me. One is the government code, the Brown Act, is clear about to me, clear about the importance of public comment coming prior to any decision or consideration that we have. So that's why we always hold public comment prior to our discussion, make sure that public comment is part of that, is considered in that discussion. And so actions that we don't consider and take action on, and to me that means have a discussion about it and make some decision, typically with a vote, are not items as indicated there. So I'm quite comfortable making those policy things we do, because I do want time for public comment for decisions we're actually going to make. So for instance, right now we're deciding whether to leave in those items in our meetings, and now's a good time to talk about, do we want to do the land acknowledgement? Do we want to do the Pledge of Allegiance? Well, we have to do a roll call, so. But when we're not making any decision or having any consideration, I've had people complain about having to sit through a long preamble to the meeting before we actually get to the item they're here for, which is something we're going to be making a decision about. And so that's my push, is to try to get us to the things where we're actually making decisions quicker. I do want to say one thing, because the asking for accommodations is part of the council rules, that it's important to me that speakers who are limited to 3 minutes understand that I'm not just handing out 4 minutes for free. Like, it's not just because there's somebody that I happen to know and want to give them 4 minutes. So I have to say something. I would never disclose any medical condition or anything, and I don't know any of those sorts of things. So I can't disclose those. But it is an uncomfortable position for the mayor to even have to say that. I will acknowledge that. I don't, in my teaching life, when students need accommodations, I don't mention it to the class, right? That's not something I like to do, but in that setting, everybody understands what's going on. So when we have speakers who only get 3 minutes, I don't want them looking at me wondering why I'm giving some people 4 minutes. So I feel like I have to say something. And obviously, I don't like anybody perceiving me as disrespectful to them. So clarifying the agenda, getting some items off the agenda that are not actually items for consideration makes sense to me, and actually have the agenda be the items that we're going to consider would be my preference. It's, again, not something I'm going to die on either. Councilmember Harvey, yeah.
Yeah, I also think that there was maybe a little bit of confusion on the consent and public comment. It very, very clearly, it wasn't to give less public comment. It very clearly states that the 3 minutes or whatever your time is for public comment, and then another 3 minutes is an additional. So it was not meant to be that it's public comment and consent and you only get 3 minutes. So I wanted to clarify that, because maybe not everyone understood that it really is 3 minutes for public comment and an additional 3 minutes for any items on the consent calendar, just to be clear.
Further comments or discussion? Okay, does anybody have a motion you'd like to make?
I have one more comment. I sort of struggled with this a little bit. I feel the same way as Councilmember Harvey that this isn't a hill I want to die on, but, but it does make me feel a little bit uncomfortable to put it in the rules that the mayor has to lead the Pledge of Allegiance and has to do all this stuff. Like when we had it as a ceremonial item that's on the agenda, that felt a little bit different to me than there's a rule that you have to say all these things and lead all of these things. Particularly the part of the pledge that, to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible. The one nation under God portion was added during the 50s to distinguish us from the Soviet Union. And, someone might not want to say that part of the pledge if they don't believe in God. So it's just, I feel a little odd requiring it in the rules that somebody has to, we have to say the Pledge of Allegiance. So I don't know a good way around that. If we wanted to just have it to be a ceremonial thing, I'm sort of okay with it in there, but I don't know if anyone else had that. If that gave anyone else pause. If not, I'm willing to just go along with it.
So the rules still refer to them, the proposed rules refer to them as the following ceremonial duties. They're still identified as ceremonial duties, but, so I guess I'm just not clear on the distinction you're making between our current stature of having them as items on the agenda, but.
Well, I think
I
the
take
difference to
discomfort.
me is that in our former council rules, the mayor and the city manager would mutually agree upon the agenda each week, and there'd be room perhaps to adjust it if someone didn't want to do that. But now it's just a rule. You have to say the pledge, and it's a rule. It just makes me feel.
You mean
funny.
do you mean like maybe making it optional or something?
Yeah, but I know that will maybe that would cause problems in making it unclear what we're exactly going to do.
Well,
but,
I don't know if everyone says under God, when if they're not comfortable with that, I don't think they have to say it. I mean, I don't know.
Well, it's in the rules now.
Oh.
That's the point, kind of, for me.
Can we add something optional in that line
I think
or
we
something?
could just, the mayor may at their discretion lead the city council in the Pledge of Allegiance or something like that in the land acknowledgement.
Councilmember Harvey.
I'm a little bit more uncomfortable with that. It has always been on here, and Mr. Barrich will remember a time when it was brought up that we should not do that. So he'll remember that time. So it's always been on here that we do it. The fact that in these rules they're stating what the words are, if that gives you pause to state what the words are, but we've always done the Pledge of Allegiance. And I think the difference is it not being a line item, but being as part of the protocol. But I wouldn't couch it as saying that it's an optional thing to be decided by the mayor.
Like I said, I'm not the hill I want to die on, but that's my, if it were up to me, I'd probably just take all the ceremonial stuff out and just so we can get through the meeting faster, but I'm okay with leaving it in.
I did watch several other city council meetings in getting ready for this, and there are some that don't do any of it. Roll call straight into agenda items. That is possible. We made a decision a couple years ago to do the land acknowledgement and crafted that fairly carefully. But that would be an option. Another option would just be to add where it says read aloud by the chair of the meeting. It says that twice, once for the land acknowledgement, once for the pledge, the chair of the meeting or their designee or something like that. If we wanted it to be possible for somebody to publicly opt out, I'd be fine with that. Any thoughts? How do you feel about adding or their or their designee?
That would be fine. Sure.
Does that meet with legal approval? Okay. Anybody wanting to make a motion?
Well, I had, sorry, one more question, which was just on the idea of these non-action agenda items. I heard the comment that it would be nice to have it after the council member and city manager reports, so people could comment on that. But we've also simultaneously been hearing that folks want to have that before the non-action agenda items happen. So I'm wondering if everyone's happy with the spot. Also, one other thing, it has a few times in the last few months confused people. There was somebody who was hanging around for the whole meeting to make a comment that should have happened during citizens' business, but they thought that it needed to happen during the non-agenda items public comment period. So non-action agenda, so I think it is a little clunky where it's at, and people have been confused about it and what it's for. So I don't know if it would make sense to have a public comment on reports, or just have that at the end and have a separate non-action agenda item earlier, so people could genuinely have the opportunity to speak at a time that makes sense.
Certainly could do that. Proposing adding another, or so moving public comment on non-action agenda items up to somewhere around citizen business, pre or post, somewhere up there, and then taking public comment on reports after they're done. Is that what you're proposing?
Something like that. Yeah, or perhaps combining the non-action agenda into that same, we have time for consent, time for public, for citizens' business, and maybe combining the non-action agenda items into the citizens' business somehow.
Yeah, for those kind of changes, I would just suggest, if the council wants to give us direction, we can then talk about it to make sure that there's no other unintended consequences, but moving things around like that, we should just probably, I should probably consult with the city attorney to make sure there's nothing else that we should consider, and then we can come back with something.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm sorry to
opposed to just
belabor
write-
this. I really want us to get this solved, so I'm trying to think through while we have the discussion open, what are some things we could try, but I'm okay to just move forward the way it is if it's premature to make that change.
Well, is there interest among the rest of the council in pursuing Councilmember Sparks' idea of moving the public comment on non-action agenda items up ahead of most of the non-action agenda items?
That would be fine.
Don't care. Yeah. Okay, it sounds like that's the direction we want to go. And so, so I think given that, maybe it makes most sense to not adopt this change tonight, so we're not changing the rules twice in a month, and just live with our current rules for.
It's the council's, the council's option if they want to postpone and give us time to look into that change.
So just the question, or what we're concerned there could be some unintended consequence that we're not thinking of moving the non-action agenda items earlier?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah.
And or combining the time.
Okay.
Might be an issue too.
It'd be my preference to move forward with what we have, and if we decide that it's allowable to make that change, or we still want to do it, then we could come back with it, but I'd just assume.
So with adding the phrase, chair of the meeting or their designee twice, that change?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear the last bit of what you said.
Move forward with what we've got with the addition of that or their designee or designee twice.
Sure.
I'm sorry to interrupt. So this is for the land acknowledgement and for the pledge, right?
Yeah.
Would be, the one edit I would suggest is if the council wants to do that, this is just the land acknowledgement part. Read aloud by the chair of the meeting or their, I would say city council designee, just to make it clear that's another council member. It's not somebody else in the room.
Yeah. In both places.
Yeah.
Anybody wish to make a motion? Oh, go ahead.
So you're suggesting that for both the land acknowledgement and the pledge?
Right,
I think that was the suggestion I
yeah,
heard.
Okay.
that's what I'm suggesting, that the mayor could ask another council member to do it on a given night.
But we have had guests that have come and asked them to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance before. We have had that happen, on, special time. I just, by putting that on that, it restricts it. That's,
I mean, it could be or their designee, comma, generally another city council member,
that's fine.
something like that.
I
So it
just-
doesn't lock you in, but makes clear that that's the general practice, right?
I'd be comfortable with that.
Everybody okay with that language? Okay. Is there anybody who wants to make a motion? Okay.
Let me see. I recommend that the City Council adopt a resolution to approve revisions to the City Council Rules of Conduct to modify various ceremonial duties on the agenda and clarify the process to add new projects or programs to the annual work plan. We didn't do the last part.
No, we did. That's part of
We
what
did,
we're
okay,
moving. Yep.
to the work plan. With those modifications that we made to add or their designee to both the land acknowledgement and the Pledge of Allegiance.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay, thank you. That carries 5-0. And we're going to take a 7-minute recess. Just trying to keep Katati 7 minutes. Okay, we're going to call the meeting back to order. And we're now on what is now item 12C, but was in the packet as item 10A. And this is the award of the 2025 Street Improvement Project, and we'll start with a staff report from Director Scott.
Mayor, members of the council, Craig Scott, Public Works Director, City Engineer. This is our annual consideration of award of a preservation project. We have a preservation, street preservation or paving project every year. And the design was completed. We put it out to bid with bids opened on March 18th. And we received 5 bids. The low bid was 12.5% below the engineer's estimate, which was welcome news. As per our protocol, we followed the state public contracting code, which has strict requirements on the confidentiality of the bids, opening the bids, noticing the bidding, and so forth. The bids were all reviewed for their responsiveness. The bids have requirements in there for providing experience on similar projects, on committing to following prevailing wage, and providing a bid bond, and so on and so forth, having the proper licensing, et cetera. So this item was prepared, put on the consent calendar for consideration of award. No adjustment to the budget is being requested, as what's in the adopted budget we would stay within. We would be a little thin on contingency, but with road projects, what would happen is if we did encounter some changes during construction, we could scale back the project just to stay within the amount. The city has worked with the low bidder before. Just last year in 2024, the street preservation project, we had American Asphalt perform that project. And the only change order was when staff asked for, we added work. We said, hey, things are going so well. And there was a piece of sidewalk on Gravenstein Way, which we said we would like replaced. And so it was at our request. And that was the sole change order for that. Once the bids are opened, the city puts it out there on our website. We tally up the bids results, and it's called a bid tabulation, and make that public on our website, because other bidders are interested in those numbers. And subsequent to that, a few days later, we received a complaint from the Foundation of Fair Contracting, and in their letter mentioned 3 lawsuits and complaints in the prior year, 2024, all pertaining to prevailing wage issues, all alleged. None of the lawsuits have concluded. At this point, staff is recommending awarding to the apparent low bidder and rejecting the bid advisory letter from the FC. This is a nonprofit organization primarily because the low bid, their contract is responsive, it's complete, has all the required elements to it, and there is no final judgment that was made. So the lawsuits could find them, liable, or they could find it to be, have no substance to it. It's either or. It may or may not have any substance to it. So we're recommending moving forward. That's basically the staff presentation. So be happy to respond to any questions you may have.
Great, thanks. I'm going to start with Councilmember Sparks, who pulled it from the consent calendar, and invite her to.
I don't have any questions. Would you like me to explain why I pulled it?
Yeah,
or-
tell us why you
Okay.
pulled it, and then we'll all see if we have questions.
Yes, so I did read through the public comment that was submitted to us, and in particular, I saw the allegations from some workers who were claiming that they weren't paid overtime, that wage theft occurred, that they weren't given breaks for meals, a whole variety, a whole slew of, that they were classified into the wrong categories, and a whole slew of allegations. And so as I started to think about awarding this contract, I wondered what checks we had as a city to make sure that any contractor who was awarded one of these contracts would be actually abiding by the prevailing wage requirements correctly. I looked through our construction management scope of work for Green Valley, and I didn't see anything about prevailing wage audits, which is something that's not entirely unheard of to have a construction manager do, I believe. So I was pulling this tonight to propose that we add prevailing wage auditing to the scope of work for the construction management company, so that we can ensure that whoever's awarded this contract is going to be actually abiding by their obligations. And if we don't add that in, I'm not certain that I feel comfortable moving forward.
Thank you. I'd like to ask Director Scott one question, which is just that one that Councilmember Sparks just mentioned, which is, what is the city's role and procedure for ensuring prevailing wage compliance?
We collect the certified payroll at regular intervals. I think it's every couple of weeks. And those are available to the Department of Industrial Relations and are made public records on the DIR, Department of Industrial Relations website.
Okay, thank you. Any more questions before I open for public comment?
Yeah. I will
go
say
ahead.
too that the certified payrolls, the idea with certified is the contractor has to certify that they're accurate and they're correct. So it's like a legal document basically that they're certifying that the payroll was done according to the prevailing wage requirements. That's what they're doing when they're submitting those. That's what the process is.
Right. But as to Councilmember Sparks' suggestion, we don't do any following up to check the veracity of those things that they certify are correct, right? We don't, I don't know what we would do. I'm not, I mean, what she's proposing is that perhaps the construction manager do an audit of that.
No, we ensure that they're properly notarized and look correct. But our emphasis is making sure that what they're charging for is what they did, that work that they did. So protecting the city's interest in that way.
Thanks. Vice Mayor Lemus.
Yeah, no, this is just concerning to me as well. With HR background, kind of compliance and different things. I wasn't sure whether, I didn't read deeply into seeing whether these complaints were on government projects or contracts that they were working on or not. Because my understanding is all taxpayer-funded projects have to be prevailing wage. So I'm glad that we're going to be doing audits to make sure that they are paying prevailing wage.
Well, that's what I'm proposing.
You mean you would support that?
I would support that. Yes, I support that. Thank you.
Councilmember Harvey.
Well, in reading through all the documentation that was provided with the complaint from this FC, they appear to basically say that the information that they're alleging that they didn't have that documentation, and they didn't say, yes, it was there. They just kind of said not available or not applicable in all of those check boxes in all of their little checklists. So if in fact these documents are available, posted online, that concerns me that they're saying that they're not available and making this accusation, and that they are publicly available is what I hear you saying. Am I understanding that correctly?
The certified payrolls are available. Then if you drill down into it, I mean, I'm not an expert in it, but when you look at the complaints on alleging that they were not paid overtime, or there was one on they dispatch if there's a specific skill set, and they dispatch for that skill set, and they weren't doing that. The certified payroll, you'd have to be there and know that it was beyond their 8-hour day and they were being called to work. You'd have to drill down, I would suspect, in a lot more detail than what's just provided on the certified payroll. So that's, I think, why the court is so difficult to work these things through, because they would really have to, walk through every single day of a project to figure out what exactly transpired. And so we collect certified payroll. That's what we do in our
Thanks.
records.
Okay, so any other questions?
I had a couple. I was trying to read through this and see, is there any type of a guarantee of quality of their work, or that they stand behind for a certain amount of time?
Yes. So the specifications are yay thick, you have
Okay.
an inch and a half. And a lot of it is the inspections, testing done for concrete asphalt while it's being applied, compaction tests, and so on.
Okay.
And then there is a 1-year warranty bond that is attached to every single one of our contracts. So when we accept the work as being complete, that sets in motion the 1-year time period for the warranty.
Okay.
Guaranteeing their work.
And this is a new contractor that we've not worked with before, is that correct?
We worked with them on this very pavement preservation project for last year.
Okay.
A year
Did
ago.
that include Old Redwood Highway from the park down to Walgreens? Do you remember? I seem to recall maybe 2-3 years ago, we redid the Old Redwood from Park to Walgreen, and it seemed to show wear and tear fairly quickly after the project was complete.
I'm sorry, that was a different contractor.
Different contractor. Okay, and we know the cause of that and everything, and this wouldn't be an issue moving forward with the new
Correct.
contract.
That was a different contractor,
All right.
different project.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, sure, but I want to get to public comment before we have much conversation. Okay.
So we used them previously, I believe was the answer. And it's also alleged that there would be the likeliness of many change orders to bring it back up. When we used them, did we get a lot of change orders that drove up the price on the previous times we've used them?
We had one change order, and it was for something staff had requested. The contract was going so well, we were getting towards the end of the project, we realized that there was some sidewalk on Gravenstein Way that had offset. And so we had them go in and redo that sidewalk. It was added, an additional work item that staff came up with, recognizing we had some additional budget we could work with. So if staff had not brought that up, it would have had 0 change orders. It would have stayed within the original contract amount.
So it's fair to say that that the project was done with the plans and specifications?
Yes.
When we used them?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, I'm going to open for public comment now. Anybody wishing to comment on what's in the agenda as item 10A, award of the 2025 street improvement project? Let's start in the...
Michael Hilber, I'm not going to suggest how you decide this, but I want to say for the record, both union and non-union contractors can bid prevailing wage projects, and there's opportunity for a lot of strange things to go on. And I'll give you an example. A non-union contractor got a public works project in the county, and the laborers union actually sent 5 workers to this job, basically as an agreement with the entity, overseeing the project, that, if you're going to hire a non-union contractor, at least you should force them to accept some union workers, because otherwise they're all from out of state. And so on Friday, they sent everybody home, and you come back on Monday, so then what do you know, on Saturday, all the non-union guys are there working on the job, and they don't, and as far as the union people, they weren't aware any work was going to be done on Saturday, so you have potential for, working off the clock and who knows what. When you have a non-union contractor working a prevailing wage job, often, there's an in lieu of benefits, like, in 2018, I worked on a fire project for a non-union contractor, and, there's no health insurance or vacation or anything, so they give you an extra $27 an hour on top of the wage, so that's really significant. And there was a non-union contractor on the JC Library construction, which was a long time ago, but a laborer told me that he was making like $55 an hour with no benefits, whereas if he was in the union, he'd be making 23 plus health care and stuff. So, but I would like you to put on the record whether or not this is a union contract or not, and just be aware that there's a lot of opportunity for things to be done to game the system when you have non-union contractors, and there's lacking oversight.
Thank you. Anybody else in the chambers? Yes, go ahead, Mr. Barrett.
To Mr. Savage's point about warranty, the stretch of road there on Old Redwood Highway towards Walgreens, I believe the contractor there was Argonaut Construction. And when that project came before us, I had asked the question, why are we only getting one bid? And the answer was because we've done work with Argonaut before, and that wasn't a satisfactory answer, but we went with Argonaut on what was supposed to be a experimental surface material that would save us some money. And it saved us some money, but it's been lifting, the pavement's been lifting, and we've had problems through town. I believe the city manager had the contractor come back and do some repairs, but we're long out of warranty now on an experimental piece of asphalt. And if we don't have in the general fund a reserve to have our city attorney or legal staff enforce these warranties, we're screwed. We don't have the horsepower or the leverage to enforce these warranties, and that's the sad detriment of running so lean and mean without reserves and budgets that are upside down. When it comes to these contracts, we are not in good bargaining position to hold anybody to work done on a street that sees over 26,000 car trips a day. We got to be very, very careful how we negotiate these and look at these warranties, but if we can't enforce the warranties, these roads just keep getting torn up before their time.
Thank you. Anybody else in the chambers? All right, let's check with our Zoom attendees.
Thank you, Mayor Ford. Once again, Zoom attendees, please use the raise hand icon to make a public comment. The first hand is from Lori Alderman. You have the floor.
I'd like to propose that you table this and go forward with Laura Sparks' idea of having like have them repropose with how much it would cost to have the wage and everything, like the audit added in, so that everybody knew that they were doing wages and everything, all were prevailing wages and everything. The audit was then there so that we could, because that's going to be an extra cost, whatever, to follow this group. Sorry, I'm having trouble talking. But what we want is, we don't want a bad reputation of, and things can go so bad. There's so many variables to this that they could go wrong and be paying people under the table, as they said, and all that. It needs to be strictly, everything needs to be in writing. We'll use union, only work 40 hours, union, all that kind of stuff at the prevailing wage. Make sure that those guarantees are there in some kind of contract amendment or something that says, and that there will be a cost to keep to do that type of audit beforehand, but it's worse that than having a disaster afterwards with how construction's going. I mean, I have a disaster outside my street. We've got West School Street that ran out of the reserves and all that, and we're still waiting, and people are walking in the street instead of the pathway, 20 to 30 people a day with cars in brown blind corners because of this issue of construction and budgets and reserves and everything. So you really need to come up with a plan to protect this project too. Thank you.
There are no further hands, Mayor Ford. That will end public comment.
All right, thank you. Bring it back to the council for discussion. So I'll just remind us there are two contracts in this item, right? There's the construction contract and the construction management contract with Green Valley Consulting Engineer. And Councilmember Sparks' proposal, I believe, is to request an amendment to the Green Valley contract to include prevailing wage audit. Is that correct? So thoughts about how we proceed?
What would that entail, I guess? I'm not familiar with that. Is that a material time delay or material cost, or?
It kind of, yeah, I'll take a shot. I'll take a shot, and then maybe Craig can add on if there's anything else. So it depends what you mean by an audit, right? There's an audit, which is a whole nother thing. That's a different scope of work. And then there's what I've seen more typically, like on federal jobs, that kind of thing, is the construction inspector will keep a daily log. That's just a routine part of the work, where they say, okay, we have this laborer, this equipment operator, this piece of equipment, and kind of what's going on the job site that day. And he keeps a log, he or she keeps a log for each day of the construction. And then typically at some point, or maybe a couple points during the course of construction, the inspector will go to, they'll randomize employees that are on the job site and say, hey, what's your name? What's your title? And what are you getting paid? And just do kind of like a randomized kind of audit with, some people that are on the job site. And then you'd expect that to all match up with the certified payroll, that this person is this person is titled an equipment operator, and they actually are an equipment operator. They're not like a laborer or something, you know what I mean? And they just do some, it's not an audit in the sense that Angela would call an audit. It's a spot check, and that's typically what I've seen in construction sites, in the more federalized type projects. And I don't know if that would be any extra level of effort. It seems like a lot of that can be incorporated in the daily activities, but I don't know for sure.
We have done that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We have done that on our federal projects.
Yeah.
Where it's spot checking exactly how you described it, where they would go out and interview the workers that day and make
Not
sure that
necessarily all of them, but just a random sample,
right.
Yeah, right.
So we actually are required to include that in our projects that include or receive federal funds.
Okay, thanks. Councilmember Sparks.
Yeah, I was just going to say, in the scope of work, it's already included for them to do daily inspections of the work. So it seems like they're already going to have somebody out there every day doing some kind of inspection, they might be able to add this in without too much additional cost. And also the overtime, making sure what hours the workers are out there and then there aren't overtime violations as well would be important.
Yeah, I mean, it wouldn't be, like the audits I'm talking about that I've seen in federal jobs and so forth. They're not literally tracking everybody all the time, but
Right.
they do spot checks to make sure it's consistent with what the construction company is saying they're paying people and for what hours.
So what I'm hearing proposed is that we approve the existing contracts together with a request that Director Scott return to Green Valley with a request to modify the scope of work to include prevailing wage spot checks. Is that a fair? And that we understand that might incur a change order cost that might have to come back to us.
Right, if we could go ahead and do that process and it's within the budget, we could just
It would
move
not have to
forward
come
with the
back to
project
us,
because
yes.
there's already a blanket statement that
Yes.
any needed change orders or amendments, the city manager has the authority. So if it went above and beyond that, we would have to come back to council
Right.
anyway.
Is that acceptable to everybody? Go ahead, Councilmember Harvey.
So what I hear you suggesting is, I believe the city manager's authority is $25,000, or what?
I'm sorry, we have a
Okay.
razor-thin contingency of about 0.7% on this, which is about
Okay.
$7,000.
Oh, okay.
So if Green Valley can do it for $7,000 or less, you won't see us coming back here
Okay.
until project
So nothing to do
acceptance.
with the city manager's son? Okay, that's what I was trying to get clear.
It's the authority you're providing us today.
This authority.
It's like an explicit one-time authority for this particular
Got it.
work. Yeah.
Okay, I just wanted to be clear.
And so what we had in the budget was nowhere near what the engineer's estimate turned out to be. So we're kind of lucky the bid came in as low as it did, or we'd be looking for a budget transfer.
Yeah, the budget is not just construction.
Right.
It's design,
Yeah, no.
construction management, the professional contracts plus the construction.
Right.
So we're trying to estimate what all of these are going to be. And the engineer's estimate, we're not, when we set the budget, we don't have the engineer's estimate at that time. So everything.
got it.
We are fortunate that the construction contract came in low.
It allowed room for construction management, yeah.
Right.
We also, have the additive alternate bid because we foresaw this possibility.
Right.
So, but because the bid was low, we can get the base bid plus the additive alternate of East Cotati Avenue. We can do the entire project as envisioned originally.
Great. Okay, so with that understanding that Councilmember Sparks' proposal is that we award the street improvement project with direction to staff to amend the construction management scope of work to include prevailing wage spot check work. Is that fair? Okay, anybody wish to make a motion?
All right, I'll give it a shot, I guess. I move that we adopt a resolution awarding the construction contract for the 2025 street improvement project to American Asphalt Repair and Resurfacing Company, and authorize the city manager to execute the construction contract and construction management and inspection services agreement with Green Valley Consulting Engineering and any needed change orders or amendments to support professional agreements up to the authorized project amount, and have the Green Valley Consulting Engineer do the spot check for the prevailing wages as proposed. How's that?
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? That carries 5-0. Thank you. Thank you all. Okay. All right, we're on to city manager's report.
All right, so April's going to be a busy month. I think some of you know that the our chamber, so the South County Chambers, led by Cotati's Chamber, Roanoke Park's Chamber, and then Petaluma's Chamber, is holding the first quarterly multi-chamber mixer coming up on the 10th of April. So that's right around the corner. We also have the, as you all know, the capital project and other funds budget study session planned for April 15th here. We have April 19th, Mercy is opening the lounge officially. It's like the official kind of, it's not a ribbon cutting, but the official opening. 420 is Easter, so it's 419. Yeah. And we also, this is kind of a big deal to our neighbor. We have Decision Day at SSU on April 26th. In terms of projects, so we expect Putnam, now that the rain is tapering off, we expect Putnam to start back up here soon. The sidewalk project, that's been it's been delayed due to the wet weather on West School and Myrtle, should be picking up, starting back up again this week, and hopefully finishing very quickly. And we're also working on well 3, so that's the videoing well rehab and the new pump installation. That should also be happening this week. And then we'll have well 3 online for the springtime, so it's ready to go. And we also have some stuff coming to Planning Commission and Council soon. So we have a code cleanup ordinance coming. This is a bunch of miscellaneous things that the council has talked about or that we know about that we're bringing forward. It's coming to council soon. Redwood Row, which is the development project adjacent to Lowe's on Highway 116 behind the Chinese restaurant. That's coming to Planning Commission here this month. The affordability agreements for Cotati Villages 1 and 2, that's the other development project that's already entitled. That is on the corner of Alder and 116. That's coming to council here very shortly. As well as the affordable housing agreement for Flahaven Estates, which is the other development that's on Old Redwood Highway opposite Eucalyptus, that's already entitled. 120 East Cotati is our joint project with our developer, and that's going to be coming forward through a public process here, April, May. So that's right around the corner as well. And our Community Development Department is also working on the transit-oriented community zoning ordinance. So as you all know, the council recently approved the Santero Way specific plan update, and so the transit-oriented zoning ordinance just basically effectuates some of the changes that were in that plan. So it just changes the zoning code to match what the plan says now. This coming Saturday is our annual Bunny Brunch and Egg Hunt event in the Cotati Room. And it's sold out, but there's a wait list in case anybody wants to get on. I think they're looking for someone to wear the bunny suit, though, if no one wants to do that. And also this weekend on Saturday and Sunday, we're collecting donations for the upcoming community yard sale. And the yard sale will be on Saturday, April 26th, another April event coming up. That's going to be from 8 to 12:30 in the morning. And next Thursday, we are delivering our bunny grams throughout Cotati and parts of Roanoke Park, and we're sold out. But there's also a wait list for that also in case there are any cancellations. Then we also, through the spring, we have a variety of events at the ranch coming up. I don't know if anyone saw the sheep shearing. It's always popular. That happened. It's always a big hit. And there's a bunch of other events: Cotati Camp, Farm Camp, Theater Camp, and a coding camp too coming up. So you can find all this on the city website and the recreation program page. With that, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Any questions for the city manager? Talk to him afterwards if you want to volunteer to wear the bunny suit. And we'll move on to council member reports. Let's start with Councilmember Savage.
I have nothing to report, thank you.
Okay. Councilmember Sparks.
I attended the Water Advisory Committee and Technical Advisory Committee special meeting on Monday to approve that was yesterday, a long week already, to approve the budget. It was approved. They did tell us that their first pass through the budget had them looking at a 40% rate increase. So we should be grateful to how much they lowered it. It was sort of an interesting number that I hadn't seen before. And then I did attend the Climate Ready Fair a week and a half ago. I had some good conversations with the people running the Redwood Bike Share and Oliver's and the Historical Society and Bicycle Coalition. So there was just a ton of different groups out there, had a lot of good conversations, and it was very well attended from what I could see.
Great. Councilmember Harvey.
Okay, on 3/27, I attended the Public Safety Policy Committee meeting, and we put forth approval to move on 2 items having to do, or support for 2 items having to do with police education. There's a bill out there, AB 89, that was going to have some educational requirements starting in 2026, and it's just not really possible to get all of that completed by then. So there were a couple of competing bills to try and extend that out to give more time to get that more fully baked. And there was a gentleman there that was actually part of the group that does all the trainings and things, and so he said they really need that ramp up time. So we also did a policy having to do with that, so that the Cal City staff can look against the policy if any other bills come through that. Then we also had a really interesting briefing from 2 ladies about the care court and that process, and it was really interesting because care court had started, and they did 8 counties in pilot, and they kind of worked out all the kinks with that, and now care court is available in all the counties. It is a long process, and CARE stands for Community Assistance, Recovery, and Empowerment Act. So it is an actual civil court process to help. It's a 3-legged stool to give people wraparound services, housing, and stabilizing medication. They've had some really good success with it. Who knows with the funding with the state, that could become a problem, but they're actually able to help folks, so that was good. On 3/29, I also attended the Climate Ready Fair. People were very interested in like the mending of clothing and things like that. That was popular. The fixing of bicycles, there was a lot of bicycle fixing there, things like that. A lot of the booths had very interesting information, and I actually picked up some pretty good disaster preparedness pamphlet on how to prepare for that, so that was interesting. On 4/1, the Mosquito and Vector Control District had a all-day from 8 to 4 strategic planning meeting, and it was very well attended. It was attended by board members and staff, and it was a really good session, so we should be getting that information. It was very interesting to see, where we landed on the items that we want to focus on. And then on 4/2, I attended the LAFCO meeting, and at that LAFCO meeting, we moved forward a protest proceeding for Sonoma Valley Fire District reorganizing with the Kenwood Fire Protection District, and that was a protest hearing, and there was not enough to protest that, so those folks will now be getting more services in Kenwood. So that was good. So one by one, we're getting the fire consolidation, so that was good. And that's all I have to report.
Thank you. Vice Mayor Lemus.
Okay, so on March 26th, I participated in Know Your Rights, a seminar with Catholic Charities. It was in Spanish. So I did address the attendees that attended that. It was a virtual meeting. And then March 27th, I was at Cal City's Policy Committee in Burbank. And there was discussions about the SB 79 transit-oriented development, which allows additional heights and concessions with no consultation by local government in transit-oriented development areas. But I think we already sent a letter on that behalf, so that's great. We had a presentation on predictability and stability by Phil Tate of the Kilroy Real Estate and Rob Cord, Advisors Real Estate Asset Services. Their point was that cities should make very clear rules and let developers do what they need for development, which they got some pushback from some of the cities and most of the cities, because we do, want to have a say in development, not just kind of move out of the way so developers can build. I did attend the Revenue and Taxation Committee. We met and received a presentation by Larry Cosmont on economic development. Some of the tools that they were talking about were climate resilient districts, value capture zonings, and EIFDs, which are Enhanced Infrastructure Finance District, which is something that we could do here, and I know a lot of local cities are doing that, to create more funding for infrastructure projects. And he shared different examples across the state where certain cities are working together, the pros and cons, and in some cities that are working independently on the EIFDs. There also was a report on a city manager sales working tax group, which has been focused on Bradley Burns' 1% tax rate that supports all the cities. E-commerce has really changed the way that that money is distributed, and a lot of the cities in Inland Empire and cities with large warehouses have been getting a lot of that percentage of sales tax. So there's a recommendation from the city manager's working group that we split that money 50-50, the Bradley Burns sales and use tax with a 10% flexibility. It would have a 5-year phase-in, and they provided a spreadsheet that showed the potential changes in revenue to all the different cities. So some cities would really have a gain, and some would have a loss of maybe up to even 25% of their sales tax base, which is a lot. But here in Cotati, we would gain up to like 10% sales tax if we do that redistribution. But it would take legislators taking that bill up, and we don't know what the end result of changes to that bill would be if the legislature take it up. And then another option we have is going to the ballot. And we don't know how that would go either, because we have to have an education of the public about Bradley Burns and what that means. It's not just Mr. Bradley, Mr. Burns, but there's more to that. So that was for Cal Cities. April 3rd, I went to Sonoma Clean Power meeting. We approved a draft policy for placing items on a board meeting agenda. We talked about Grid Savvy Awards, which we're trying to increase the amount of people that are participating in that. Last year, we had 12,000 participating. And this year, they have a goal of 20,000 participants. They're going to be doing a lot more outreach on that. And that's to kind of have the public and the community get involved in helping to save energy and maybe using peak times. And so they receive alerts on their phones, and they receive smart thermostats and different equipment that they can use at their homes to save on energy. So Grid Savvy is something that they're really concentrating on. We worked on project selection criteria, proposed language, mostly for solar projects. And one of the issues was the size of projects and the criteria that was in question for the labor organizations that attended. So the projects were going to be 20 megawatt, but they would lower that to 1 megawatt. They wanted 1 megawatt, but we agreed to 3 megawatt, and they would review it in 2 years to see whether we can go down to 1 megawatt projects as a threshold. I also attended an ad hoc with Sonoma Clean Power for a local investment proposal, where there's a proposal for an accelerator center modeled after Central Community Partners in Oakland. And the next steps will be identifying core services for that hub and then looking for ongoing funding. There could be a potential grant and loan from Sonoma Clean Power for this project. April 4th, I went to the Regional Parks Foundation meeting, and I'm glad to hear that there's a $24 million expansion of Monorio Redwoods, which is going to connect to the coastal lands, and they're working on an interim access plan to access the property, but not until the property is accepted by the Board of Supervisors in June. And this is in partnership with Save the Redwoods, Ag Open Space District, and Sonoma Land Trust. Let me see what else I have. I also went to graduation of Yes Coast, which is students that go out and learn about coast and marine biology and different activities that they do. So that was one that I went to. I went to the Cotati Chamber of Commerce, and I know that the city manager shared some of the information, including, I don't know if he shared that Mercy Wellness Lounge is going to have a ribbon cutting for their lounge, so that's coming up as well. So that's what I have for today.
All right, thank you very much. I have 3 things to report on that I've done as your representative. One was attend the Climate Ready Fair as well, which I saw several of you. And I was very impressed with the attendance and the job the staff did putting it all together. It was quite impressive. I want to be working at the fix-it table next time. That's my kind of thing, fixing mechanical and electrical things. I was the city's co-host of the English version of the Know Your Rights virtual presentation, which was on Thursday, March 27th, so I welcomed people on behalf of the city. And Catholic Charities did a very nice job running that session, so I was glad they invited us to partner with them. And the Russian River Watershed Association is nearing awarding a contract for a consultant to help develop its first ever strategic plan, and that'll be a good project for that group. And that's it. So move on to item 16. Was there any information? Sorry, public comment, item 15, public comment on non-action agenda items. So we'll start in the chambers for that. Mr. Barrett.
Thank you. I think this item 15, public comment on non-action item, agenda items needs to stay where it is after council member reports and city managers' reports, because it's very important for us to hear your reports and then, if needed, comment and give you direction on where we can help you going forward. I think it should stay right there. Also, regarding the Pledge of Allegiance, I want to remind some of you regarding the Pledge of Allegiance that some of our council members don't say the entire Pledge of Allegiance. You noticed? I've seen this over the years. They get to that one part, one nation under God, and their lips just, can't do it. So it's not really the Pledge of Allegiance. It's something else. Really? It really is kind of something else. Maybe you call it something else. Maybe if you can't say the whole pledge, you recuse yourself and come back when it's over. But that's kind of an issue. I also want to remind you that years ago, Susan Harvey remembers that the limit to speak for the public to speak was 5 minutes. For many, many years, maybe decades, the time limit was 5 minutes, and the council was often gracious enough to give you another 30 seconds or a minute. And we had 10 or 20 people in the room here who participated throughout the night. These meetings started at 7 o'clock and often went till 10, 11, and midnight. Boy, have we lost our way. We have really gotten soft, okay? So I want you to consider that. Back when I published my newspaper that was delivered to every household and business in town, I gave the city council's offers to write for the paper, send letters to the editors in. They didn't want to deal with any of that, but that's something to consider going forward, is the cooperation and encouraging of the public to be involved. And regarding, how much time it's taking to get through these meetings when you have concerned citizens here, I don't know what the council expected when they passed me over for the vacant seat on the city council. I mean, what did you guys expect? Just kind of going to go off into the sunset? Okay, you guys have dug this hole. If it wasn't for the recall and passing me over, I'd be up on my property in Lake County right now and fishing probably. But this is what we have. Now, regarding the police chief in the back of the room, I want to commend the fact that you took my good idea, unless it was with other people's idea, that it's good to have the chief in the back of the room. I think that's going to work well, the fact that he can get a jump on somebody who comes in here and is violent or drunk or whatever. So, also, this building is not earthquake retrofit. So on a future agenda, we need to have a workshop on what we're going to do to protect our staff, protect the public from this building that is not earthquake safe. Whether we can solicit Rohnert Park to see if we can rent their chambers for the city council meetings. But since there's no money in the budget for capital improvements, for a city hall like this that could be down on Hellman Lane or down near the Public Works lot, it would cost millions, but we warned you 20 years ago this day was going to come. There's also, for a future agenda, there's a food truck parked at 76 Station at Apple Valley Shopping Center. I don't know if it's licensed. I don't know if it's permitted here in Cotati, but I really don't want to approach the truck. I would ask maybe the council members to approach and see if they're legal, because I don't think our staff is interested in code enforcement on anybody else but me. So I would ask you to do that. Also for the agenda, the hotel project is a disaster and a nuisance, and I'm getting all kinds of complaints about it. I'd like you to address what is now a public nuisance at the hotel location.
Thank you.
Yeah, Michael Hilber, I'll make this brief. I apologize because apparently I have some difficulty hearing, but I seem to have understood there's some discussion about sales taxes and actions of the legislature. Sebastopol wants act of the legislature to raise the cap to 10.5, so they'll be okay. Because, you know, all the voter-approved taxes put Sebastopol at 10.5, but the Crooked County supervisors gave them some deal that they would effectively exempt them from collecting the child care tax. So they're at 10.25, but they're getting their full 0.5% that they voted on just in November, and they voted for the child care tax but don't have to pay it. I would tell anybody, you know, if you're in a jurisdiction with a sales tax that's 10 or above, just boycott purchasing anything there. If you go out to, say, buy something at Friedman Brothers that's outside the city limits and you pay a lower county sales tax rate, at Lowe's it's 10.25, but at Friedman's it's something like 9.5 or 9.25, something like that, because there's no add-on city taxes there. So that would make sense, because people paying over 10% sales tax, you know, you're just getting screwed.
Thank you. Anybody else in the chambers? Okay, let's check with our Zoom audience.
Thank you, Mayor Ford. Zoom attendees, please use the raise hand icon to make a public comment. The first hand is from Lori Alderman. You have the floor.
First, this is sort of funny. If the West School Pathway project is starting, where's the porta potty? It was there for months, and there's no porta potty across the street, which is sort of fun to watch guys run in and Amazon drivers. And anyways, it just doesn't seem that's really true that there's coming back to the West School Street project. The Climate Ready Fair. Of course, you guys are saying great things about it, but it served 350 people according to the records and cost $20,000 of our taxpayer monies to put on. That's $57 per person to go to the Climate Ready Fair. What would a $57 for 350 seniors done for the city? Your priorities are all wrong. The community yard sale. Why are we having it for the recreation department when they are in scholarships and everything, when you hardly give out, and it's less than 1,000 you're given in scholarships, but it seems you would earn more than that. I have an idea for a future agenda item with CalPERS. I saw a big thing on, you know, the stock market going down, that it could cause big ripples in CalPERS and unlimited pension liability. So if you could look into that. I'm also in agreement. The hotel is a disaster, and I've been in contact with Ken Molinaro, and he keeps saying it's starting on publicly on the page, and it's a public nuisance. There are laws about building codes, and code enforcement is not going out there and doing anything because code enforcement is too busy going after George with the code enforcement scandal. which you all won't acknowledge. And one of the parts of that is the PRA request from Robert Smith, the attorney, and code inspector and prosecuting attorney, and if he jury, everything, he's everything. He has not submitted any of his billings that detail since November. I've been waiting for PRA requests. Today I did get only one of them. I got, this is also, I think, quite illegal, is the prosecuting attorney who is, pays the judge. And we just found out today, a PRSA response that was $40,000 in the last 2 years, that just the PRA requests need to be full and on time, and you can need to investigate when there's not that he's not putting them in, but he's doing it to manipulate the whole situation, because we're over 100,000 at least in attorney fees and judge fees to begin with, and we can't even figure anything out because you guys want to investigate why things on the code enforcement are going. Thank you.
Thank you.
There are no further hands. Mayor Ford, that will end public comment.
All right, thank you. So now we'll move on to item 16, information received after the agenda was posted. Was there any?
Yes, thank you, Mayor Ford. There was one letter received regarding item 12A. The commenter mentioned it in her comment tonight. That letter was received shortly before the meeting, so it was not posted to the HTML agenda. However, it is available here in print, both for the council at the dais as well as at the table in the back of the room. And it will be posted to the HTML agenda tomorrow. Thank you.
Great, thank you much. And with that, we're adjourned at 8:54.